Right now, as you're watching this, American warplanes are circling over Iran. Bombs are falling on one of the most strategically important islands on the planet. 5,000 United States Marines are being shipped to the Middle East. And the President of the United States just went on camera and said, and I quote, "We have destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability." So if you think this is just another news cycle, if you think this is just another headline that's going to fade in 48 hours, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now, because what is happening in Iran at this very moment is unlike anything this country has done since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. And in many ways, it is far more dangerous, far more unpredictable, and far more consequential for every single American watching this video. So let me break this down for you piece by piece, minute by minute, because there is so much happening that the mainstream media is either too slow or too scared to tell you. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what Operation Epic Fury is, why the United States just bombed Iran's crown jewel Karg Island, why 5,000 Marines are heading into the region right now, why Special Operations Forces are being prepped for what analysts are calling the mother of all commando raids, and most importantly, what this means for you, your gas prices, your safety, and whether or not American boots are about to hit Iranian soil. So buckle up, because this is going to be the most important 30 minutes you spend today. Now, before I get into the details, let me ask you a question that should genuinely scare you. How did we get here so fast? Think about it. On February 27th, most Americans were going about their daily lives. Kids were in school, people were filing taxes, and then on February 28th at 2:30 in the morning, President Trump posted an 8-minute video announcing that the United States and Israel had launched nearly 900 strikes in just 12 hours across Iran. They hit military bases, they hit missile facilities, they hit air defense systems, and in one single devastating blow, they killed the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The man who had ruled that country with an iron fist for over 3 decades was gone, just like that. And dozens of other Iranian officials were killed alongside him. And the American public woke up that morning to a world that had fundamentally changed overnight. There was no congressional debate. There was no primetime presidential address to the nation. There was a Truth Social post at 2:30 a.m. And suddenly we were at war. And that brings me to the first question I need you to really sit with. Did anyone ask the American people if they wanted this war? Because according to a Quinnipiac poll that came out just days ago, 53% of registered voters said they oppose this military action. Only 40% approve. 74% are worried about rising oil and gas prices, and 71% believe this war is going to last months or even longer. But here we are, over 2 weeks in, and instead of winding down, this thing is escalating in ways that nobody predicted. So let me take you through what has happened since February 28th, because the scale of this operation is staggering. The United States Central Command CENTCOM has confirmed that American forces have struck roughly 6,000 targets inside Iran since the war began. Let me say that again, 6,000 targets. We're talking about missile facilities, naval bases, air defense systems, weapons storage sites, ballistic missile launchers, command and control centers, and according to CENTCOM, more than 60 Iranian ships have been sunk and over 30 mine layers have been eliminated. The Iranian Navy, for all intents and purposes, does not exist anymore. President Trump said it himself. Iran has no navy, no air force, no radar, no air detection left. And if that sounds like an exaggeration, the satellite imagery and CENTCOM's own statements seem to back it up. But here's where it gets really intense. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell, because I am covering this conflict every single day with the most detailed analysis you will find on YouTube. And I do not want you to miss a single update. This situation is changing by the hour. Now, let me ask you another question that's keeping military analysts up at night. Why did the United States just bomb Karg Island? And what does it mean for the global economy? Because this is the part of the story that directly affects your wallet, your commute, and the price of literally everything you buy. So here's what happened. On the evening of March 13th, President Trump announced that he had directed CENTCOM to execute what he called one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East on Karg Island. Now, if you don't know what Karg Island is, You need to, because this tiny little island sitting about 15 miles off Iran's southern coast handles roughly 90% of all Iranian crude oil exports. 90%. It is the economic lifeline of the entire Iranian regime. It is their crown jewel. And Trump used that exact phrase. He said, we totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel Karg Island. CENTCOM confirmed that more than 90 military targets were destroyed on the island, including naval mine storage facilities, missile storage bunkers, the Joshan Sea Base, an airport control tower, and a helicopter hangar. More than 15 explosions were heard on the island. Thick black smoke was rising for hours, and Trump posted actual bombing footage on Truth Social showing the strikes in real time. But here's the twist, and this is the part that tells you everything about the strategy. Trump said that he deliberately chose not to destroy the oil infrastructure on the island. He wrote, for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure. But then he added a direct threat. He said, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. And then just today, in an interview with NBC, Trump went even further and said the strikes totally demolished much of the island, and then added, we may hit it a few more times just for fun, just for fun. Those are the words of the commander-in-chief of the United States military talking about bombing a sovereign nation's most critical economic asset. And whether you support this war or oppose it, those words carry enormous weight because Karg Island is not just an Iranian issue, it is a global issue. And that brings me to the Strait of Hormuz, which is where this whole situation gets terrifyingly dangerous for every American. Here's what you need to understand. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, and roughly 1/5 of all the world's oil passes through it every single day. 1/5. And since this war started, Iran has been actively blocking that strait. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps declared that not a liter of oil would pass through. They've attacked at least 6 commercial vessels, including a Thai-flagged ship where 3 crew members are still missing. Shipping traffic through the strait has essentially collapsed. Maritime intelligence reports from March 12th confirmed that global shipping routes are being rerouted away from the region entirely. And the result, Brent crude oil has closed above $100 a barrel for 2 consecutive days. Gas prices in the United States have hit $3.64 on average nationally and are approaching $5 in parts of the West Coast. And this is only 2 weeks into the war. So think about that for a second. What happens if this goes on for months? What happens to your grocery bill, your heating costs, your ability to fill up your tank and get to work? This is not abstract geopolitics. This is your checking account. This is your family budget. And right now, the president's response is to tell other countries to help secure the strait. He posted on social media saying, the countries of the world that receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage, and we will help a lot. And while Trump promises gas prices will tumble once the war ends, no one, and I mean no one, can tell you when that's going to be. Trump himself told reporters it'll be as long as necessary. He said, I have my own idea, but I won't give you a time. And that uncertainty is what's driving markets and families absolutely crazy right now. Now, here's another question that is going to blow your mind. And this is something that most media outlets are barely touching. Is the United States about to put boots on the ground in Iran? Because the signals coming out of the Pentagon right now are not subtle. They're screaming that this war is about to enter a completely new phase. On March 13th, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth approved a request from CENTCOM to deploy approximately 5,000 additional Marines and sailors to the Middle East. This includes an amphibious ready group and an attached Marine Expeditionary Unit, the 31st MEU based out of Japan, which is the Marine Corps' only constantly forward deployed unit. These Marines are trained for crisis response. They're trained for embassy evacuations, but most importantly, they are trained to be the first ones on the ground to set up areas for other forces like special operators to come in and execute missions. The USS Tripoli, one of the largest amphibious assault ships in the fleet, along with the USS San Diego and USS New Orleans, are already headed to the region. And when you see an ARGMEU moving toward a conflict zone, that is not a de-escalation signal. That is a signal that the door to a ground operation is being cracked wide open. Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief strategist, said it himself On his War Room podcast, he said this sends a signal to Iran, but it also sends a signal to the American people. This is a major escalation. And he's right, because while Trump has publicly said he is nowhere near sending troops into Iran, multiple reports tell a very different story behind the scenes. NBC News reported that Trump has privately expressed serious interest in deploying a small contingent of U.S. troops into Iran for specific strategic purposes. Axios reported that one of the options being actively discussed would send special operations units into the country to seize and destroy key nuclear sites. Semaphore confirmed that both CENTCOM and Israeli allies have developed plans that would put commandos on the ground at sites like Isfahan, Fordow, and Qom, where Iran's enriched uranium is believed to be stored. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked point blank at a congressional briefing whether Iran's enriched uranium would be secured. And his answer was chilling. He said, people are going to have to go and get it. People are going to have to go and get it. Let that sink in. And that brings me to what military experts are now calling the single most dangerous mission that could come out of this entire war, a special operations raid to secure Iran's nuclear material. And I need you to understand how serious this is, because this is not a movie. This is not a video game. This is real life with real consequences. Here's the situation. Iran has approximately 441 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That's about 972 pounds, enough to build roughly 11 nuclear warheads. If further refined, they also possess over 8,000 kilograms of uranium enriched to lower levels that could be upgraded if enrichment capacity is restored. Now, during last June's 12-day war, Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. hit key nuclear facilities, including the underground complex at Isfahan, and they thought they had set the program back years. But here's the problem. The International Atomic Energy Agency hasn't been able to verify the location of that uranium in nearly 9 months, and intelligence agencies have now assessed that Iranian authorities have regained access to at least some of it. Satellite imagery showed Iran burying tunnel entrances with soil in the weeks before this war started. They were clearly preparing for exactly this scenario. And now nobody, not the Pentagon, not the CIA, not Israeli intelligence, is entirely sure where all of that uranium is. Publicly, U.S. officials project confidence, but privately, there is far less certainty. And that is terrifying, because if the Iranian regime collapses and there's a power vacuum, that nuclear material could end up in the hands of Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, or black market buyers. And that is why a commando raid is being seriously considered despite the enormous risks. Analysts at Stars and Stripes are calling it the mother of all commando raids. Any operation would require elite special operations forces supported by heavy equipment and nuclear technical experts. They would need to penetrate heavily fortified underground facilities in the middle of an active war zone, clear and secure each site while potentially under missile and drone fire from close range, and then extract nearly 1,000 pounds of radioactive material from deep inside Iranian mountains. This would not be a quick in and out. This could turn into a prolonged pitched battle. And the Stimson Center, one of the most respected think tanks in Washington, published a report saying that to truly affect regime change and secure the vulnerable weapons of mass destruction material, the United States may yet have to put boots on the ground. And remember, Trump has already shown he's willing to greenlight high-risk special operations. In January, he sent Delta Force into Venezuela to capture Nicolas Maduro. Last month, he awarded the Medal of Honor to a soldier who was part of that raid. So the precedent is there, the willingness is there, and the military infrastructure is moving into position as we speak. Now, if you are still with me, and I know this is a lot of information, I need you to do two things. First, drop a comment below telling me what you think. Should the United States send special forces into Iran to secure that uranium? Or is this a trap that will drag us into another 20-year quagmire? I want to hear your honest take. And second, share this video with someone who needs to understand what's happening, because the mainstream coverage is fragmented and incomplete. And this video is giving you the full picture in one place. Let me now talk about something that is not getting nearly enough attention: the human cost. Because in the fog of war and the excitement of military technology and geopolitical chess moves, it is easy to forget that real people are dying on both sides. As of right now, 13 American service members have been killed since Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th. The first three were killed on March 1st, marking the first American casualties of the war. And on March 12th, a KC 135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq, killing all six crew members on board. CENTCOM said the crash was not caused by hostile or friendly fire and is under investigation. But six families just lost their loved ones. At least 150 Americans have been wounded. And when Defense Secretary Hegseth was pressed by reporters to give exact casualty figures and locations, he hesitated, turned to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and then said the Pentagon would not be providing specific numbers of killed or wounded. And think about what that means. 90% of the wounded have reportedly returned to duty, but the American public is being kept in the dark about the true cost of this war. On the Iranian side, more than 1,400 people have been killed, including about 170 people who died when a missile struck a girls' school adjacent to a naval base in Manab, a girls' school. And the total number of people displaced by the fighting in Iran and Lebanon has reached into the millions. Cities in Iran have reportedly become ghost towns as civilians are too afraid to go outside. Prisoners in Evin prison have been receiving limited bread and water since the war started. And when the news broke that Khamenei had been killed, security forces were deployed across the country to prevent any celebrations, and footage emerged of them opening fire on people who were cheering in the streets. So while the Pentagon puts out statements about precision strikes and military targets, the reality on the ground is far messier and far more painful than any press briefing will tell you. And that leads me to another massive question. Who is running Iran right now, and does it even matter? Because here's what happened after Khamenei was killed. His son, Mojtaba Khamenei, 56 years old, was elected on March 8th by the Assembly of Experts to replace his father as supreme leader. The IRGC pledged allegiance to him. Iran's top leaders fell in line. And in his first public address, Mojtaba declared that the lever of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must definitely be used to pressure the United States. But here's where it gets strange. Defense Secretary Hegseth told reporters that intelligence suggests Mojtaba was actually wounded and likely disfigured in the initial airstrikes on February 28th. Hegseth called him a rat and said that's what rats do. They hide. And the U.S. State Department is now offering $10 million rewards for information on Mojtaba Khamenei, IRGC leaders, and Iran's intelligence minister. And Trump dismissed the new supreme leader as lightweight and threatened that he would not last long without Trump's approval. So you have a new Iranian leader who may be physically injured, hiding underground, commanding a military that has been largely decimated, trying to hold together a regime that was already facing the largest protests since the 1979 revolution, just weeks before the war started. And the question is, can this regime survive? And if it can't, what comes next? Because if you've been paying attention to history, you know that when governments collapse in the Middle East, the aftermath is rarely peaceful. Iraq taught us that. Libya taught us that. Syria taught us that. And Iran is 4 times the population of Iraq, with far more sophisticated military infrastructure and a nuclear program that still has material unaccounted for. Now, let me bring this full circle and talk about what could happen next, because the trajectory of this war is heading in a direction that should concern every American. Here are the scenarios that are on the table right now. Scenario 1, the air campaign succeeds in breaking the regime's will. Iran comes to the negotiating table. A deal is reached that includes the dismantlement of their nuclear program. The IRGC stands down and some form of transition happens. Trump has said multiple times that Iran wants a deal, but that the terms aren't good enough yet. But Iranian diplomats have publicly rejected his overtures in a letter, insisting they remain committed to the Islamic Republic. So a clean diplomatic resolution seems unlikely in the short term. Scenario 2, the air campaign continues, but transitions into targeted ground operations. This is where the special forces raids come in. Small teams go in, secure the uranium, take out remaining leadership targets, and get out. The administration is calling these limited missions not boots on the ground in the traditional sense, but every military analyst I've read is saying the same thing. Limited missions in hostile territory have a way of becoming unlimited very quickly. Scenario 3, and this is the one that keeps defense experts up at night: a full ground invasion, the Marines being deployed, the amphibious assault ships, the MEU trained for beachhead operations, All of this hardware is exactly what you would need to launch an amphibious landing on Iran's coastline, whether it's Karg Island or the coast along the Strait of Hormuz. Former intelligence analysts are warning that this war can still get much, much worse. And the deployment of ground forces sends exactly that signal. Scenario 4, the wild card. Iran's counterstrikes succeed in pulling other nations into the conflict. Hezbollah has already activated in Lebanon, launching attacks on Israel. The Lebanese death toll is over 800. Israel has responded with hundreds of additional strike waves, including strikes in Beirut. Iran has attacked U.S. bases in Iraq. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is telling all Americans to leave immediately. Iran has threatened to strike oil facilities in the UAE, calling American positions their legitimate targets, and the entire Gulf region is on a knife's edge. One miscalculation, one stray missile, one dead American in the wrong place, and this regional conflict could become something much larger and much harder to control. Let me leave you with this. The first 6 days of Operation Epic Fury cost American taxpayers an estimated $11.3 billion. And that figure excluded a range of war related expenses, meaning the real number is higher. Gas prices are climbing. Oil markets are in turmoil. American service members are dying. The Strait of Hormuz is essentially closed. 5,000 Marines are heading into the region. Special forces are being prepped for the most dangerous commando raid in modern history. And the President of the United States says this will continue as long as necessary. This is not a distant conflict. This is America's war. Your tax dollars are funding it. Your military is fighting it. And the economic consequences are hitting your family right now. So the question I want to leave you with is this: where does this end? Because right now, nobody in Washington, nobody in Tehran, and nobody in Tel Aviv seems to have a clear answer. And that uncertainty, that open-endedness is perhaps the most dangerous thing of all. Thank you for watching this entire breakdown. I know it was long, but this situation demands depth, not sound bites. If you made it this far, you are more informed than 99% of Americans right now. So please hit subscribe, share this video with everyone you know, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. I'll be back with another update as soon as there are major developments. And in this war, major developments are happening every single day. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.